It's 11:45, Nigeria. We either get it right or we fall off the brink. Welcome to 11:45. My guest today is Kunle Lawal, a Yoruba man by heritage, but an Arewa man by reason of where he was born and raised, in the heart of Zaria in Kaduna State. Kunle has spent much of his life challenging the status quo of Nigeria's politics, first in his role as National Publicity Secretary of Kowa Party, then with his run for the senatorial seat of the FCT in 2019. Now he works to deepen our knowledge of the workings of Nigeria's democracy through the Electoral College, an NGO where he serves as an executive director. Thank you so much, Mr. Lawal, for joining me on 11:45. I can call you Kunle, right?
Of course you can.
You don't want me to call you Mr. Lawal?
No. I'm still trying to get used to that.
Do we call Mr. Lawal?
Yes.
Why is that?
I think I'm not used to titles. So I was born to two professors, and my mother till today uses T. Lawal. My father's late, but my mother still uses T. Lawal on her door. She doesn't use the title professor before. So I've had a thing against titles. I think coming up,
I mean, for a Nigerian, that's a really unusual thing, isn't it? Particularly Nigerians in sort of the public eye, because we seem to sort of revel in being known as big men and big women, and we like our titles.
Yes, we do. But especially when you're running for office, you find people insisting they call them distinguished, honorable, and these guys just body form. They haven't even won a primaries, and
many of their behaviors are far from honorable, actually. So you kind of like
that's totally another story.
But I'm interested that you started off, responding to that by talking about your parents, because in addition to being Yoruba but born and raised in Zaria, you also come from a mixed religious heritage, Muslim father and a Catholic mom. How has that shaped you?
Well, my parents believed religion was a personal thing, and they were more interested in faith than they were in trying to give something a name. So I was raised with both holy books, and then when you're 10, my father will call you to the room and he'll be like, so where do you want to be? And so I went to Arabic school, I went to Sunday school, and I went through the whole thing. So I made my choice at 10, and once you make your choice, I remember I chose to be Christian, and I remember I'm more afraid of my dad catching me dodging church than my mom.
That's quite
and
interesting.
My brothers were more afraid. That's my brother who's a Muslim. Was more afraid of my mom, who's a Christian, catching him not praying or missing one of his prayers than my dad, actually.
Coming from that sort of mixed heritage and growing up in a Nigeria which is increasingly polarized, both along ethnic lines but also along religious lines, what did that do to your family and to the psyche of someone like you who's sort of now becoming really involved in our political life?
Well, I would say first it was kind of hard, because when I got to university was when I actually realized the real gap, and then this ethnic coloration.
Oh, before then you thought everybody was like you?
Yes, I thought everybody was like me. I couldn't tell the difference. Mecca, okay, so then but when you get to university, you now start to hear, Igbos are like this, Hausas are like this, Yorubas are like this, and then as you grow older, it gets worse. I remember, so I'm married to a woman from Akwa Ibom. She's Oron. And
so you've even extended the mixing a little bit more.
I don't know why. So I'm married to a woman, and I remember when I went for my traditional, when I got there, because of the kind of kaftan I was wearing, which is basically northern, and they were like, this one wants to put our daughter inside hijab.
Oh.
And then, there's like, you're going to put her inside bashiga. Their way, they had their way of saying the bashiga, and I didn't understand. So when I had my son, and my wife says is cut low and was died then as of 2017, and when she came back, they were like, are you still with your husband, or you married someone else?
They assumed,
yes,
since she's not wearing a hijab, she must be divorced.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Well, things we go through.
Okay, so how did you go from sort of that sort of background to deciding that you wanted to join active politics? Because I know that your first sort of major foray was working as an executive of COA party. And I think COA was we got to know COA, most of us, around 2011. That was, during the time of Fola Adiola,
Remi
Shonaya, and all of that. And I think there were a lot of people who genuinely felt that COA could be that third party that everybody thinks Nigeria needs. So talk me through that journey. At what point did you decide that being an observer and someone who only participates during maybe elections wasn't enough for you and you wanted to get involved? And what drove that decision?
So I'll start this story, and it's kind of it's a very simple story. I was a consultant. Preceding then, I had been with, I was a PA to Josephine Aneni while she was Minister of Women Affairs. And then from there, I got into, of course, my own private business. And I was a consultant, doing quite well. And then there was an issue. And about the time I was having my son, so he was born preemie. And, oxygen was 7,000 an hour. About 7,000 an hour at the time. And then there was this night post driver who was also there, and they wanted to kick his daughter out of the
hospital,
out of the intensive care unit for babies. And the forefathers came together, and it was such a sad thing. It was seeing health fail. Then I just realized I'd spent a lot of time with a lot of people who were really concerned about the Constitution. I virtually knew it because of somebody who I look at as a mentor. I'm sure you probably might know him, Kaloma Mustafa.
Mm-hmm.
And Kaloma is someone who I spend a lot of time with and just sit down and talk with. And then he was like, Kunle, if you care so much about this country and you're agitated about this, you can't do anything from outside.
Mm.
And I started, really making comments. And I started with my Facebook, actually, and, writing things about things that were going on. And then I remember Nigerian Info FM, Ofi of Nigerian Info FM invited me. And then Remi Shonaya heard me speak on radio. And she requested a meeting with me. Before you know that, I was part of COA party. I rose up. I was Director of Strategy while she was running. Rose up to become now National Publicity Secretary. And then I remember my birthday, sitting down with my friends, and they're like, Kunle, you've done almost everything. You've worked on the constitution of the party. You've created state structure. What's next? And I was like, I don't know. Somebody was like, why don't you run for office? I was like, no, my strength is more constitutional. And they're like, yeah, do something legislative.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I'll run for
before we get to your FCT run, I'm very much interested in talking a little bit more about the COA party. And the reason is simple. I think there's a general consensus. And we've had one for a little while, that the two mainstream parties, in other words, the ruling APC and what used to be the ruling PDP, have not done well for Nigeria and by Nigerians. And that there's a need to sort of find this alternative that could provide a real means for Nigerians to change the political system. I know that people were hopeful about COA. Based on your sort of working in that party, what went wrong? Why did it go from being a party that in 2011 had candidates to one that people thought would grow to now we're about to enter another circle and it's not even being talked about? What keeps going on with parties that keep trying to compete against the big two, based on your sort of experience?
If I were to look at it and give something that was repetitive in all these parties, is that I don't think people are educated enough on the realities of politics before they go into it.
Right.
Most of the mistakes I've seen with COA, which I was a part of, Alliance for New Nigeria, which I also was a part of before now I'm seeing with new parties, is that first and foremost, people do not even understand the way it works. So because you don't understand the way it works, you go into a war not ready. You have the belief that things are going to be not as you planned them. And then to top it all, we must also call ourselves the electorate into the foray, because we too have the electorate has a very low bar in what exactly they think can change the country.
But why is that is the issue? Because if you've had two parties that have consistently failed since the return to democracy, civilian rule, unbroken elections roughly 23 years. If that's happening and the parties that you keep, putting into power are consistently failing you and you're not able seemingly to dislodge them, there must be a reason why.
Political education in Nigeria is poor.
Okay.
The average Nigerian cannot name 4 political parties. Next problem is that by statistically, the Electoral College believes that 76% of Nigerians are politically illiterate.
Right.
And at that point, they cannot tell, okay, so someone is running for Senate or for House of Rep, and your thought process is the roads he's going to give to you, constituency projects, which is totally even unconstitutional in the first place.
It's not his job as a member of the National Assembly.
That's an executive function. But that is what they expect. These issues, and then the belief that maybe a governor can sack a local government chairman.
Yeah, because we've seen it happen.
Yeah, but
in practical terms.
Practical terms, but it's not right. You don't take out an elected, cannot take out an elected. Sack is not the word. So you have these situations, and we've created a bubble which is a far distant from reality. And because of that, we operate within that prism. So it's kind of hard to even say, okay, this is a good candidate. This is what he's going to do. And I would say something. Within the APC and PDP, I've met very, very credible people, very, very people that love this country. But how much can they give when people, even in office, which we give about over 50%, do not understand the jurisdictions of their own offices?
You talked just now about the Electoral College, and so this is an organization that you co-founded, which is designed to help with civic education around politics and elections. Tell me a little bit about setting up that body and what it actually does and why you think it was necessary.
Okay, so
or why you thought it was necessary.
Post 2019, I looked at Nigeria generally. Fela Durotoye I ran under him as for Senate in Abuja, and then Kingsley Morgan.
And we will talk a little bit about your jumping parties too, like the politicians that we're talking about, but go on.
So I looked at all that, and then I realized that Nigerians don't know what exactly who is supposed to do. And then you had people like Fela Durotoye and Kingsley Morgan saying things out of the jurisdiction of a president. So I'll give an example. And
they themselves are supposed to really educated, really exposed.
Really.
In the case of Kingsley Morgan, who worked at a really high level, within an institution that is part of government.
I'll give an example. You'd hear a presidential candidate talking about gay rights, for example. And the truth is, if you study the Constitution of Nigeria, a president is allowed to have his personal opinion on gay rights, but that decision is vested in the National Assembly. And these guys running for office do not know the difference.
No, but maybe all they were doing was basically saying they believe in those things, and if they were elected, they would use their position to encourage
and
justice.
Therein lies the problem in Nigeria.
Right.
So most of the people with massive following don't even understand the way governance works. So in the end, what they're doing is miseducating an electorate.
Right.
And you have this across board. I don't need to mention names. So we looked at all that, and we said, okay, the Electoral College would intervene in these matters. So we set up the college with a plan to, I'll be honest, we wanted to educate people, but we're scared of how much it will cost. COVID was one of the best things that happened to the Electoral College, because we found a way to now educate people virtually. And we've had physical sessions, but they cost a lot of money. And we looked at it, 26 course module, the entire thing, executive, legislative, post-election. We also believe that Nigerians will not understand a good manifesto if you do not teach them what a manifesto is. So we also go through that, candidate declaration, everything, the fourth estate, the work of the fourth estate.
How do people sign up? And are you finding that people are interested?
Yeah, we you see, the thing with Nigerians is our interest in politics is funny. So everybody assumes they know. We've had sign-ups up to 3,000 in one cohort. I don't think it's bad. The problem now is graduation levels. So our courses are free. We don't charge anything. We don't run on grants yet. So it's personal donations.
And people giving their time and all of that.
And people putting in a lot for it. So we go through that phase and we demand at least 60% attendance and then completion of 3 assignments. And that's all we ask for. 1 hour every day on weekends. That's Friday, Saturday, Sunday for 9 weeks. And that's what we go through. So we looked at it and said, okay, this is what we are going to do. But we didn't stop at intervening there. The Electoral College also has conducted the first virtual debate in Africa at senatorial level, which was the Lagos East by-elections.
Okay. Before we get to sort of, I'm really interested in the education aspect of it, because if we sort of agree that a lack of knowledge is hampering the electoral engagement with the political process, including how we decide on who to vote for, who we vote for, etc., etc., the scalability of what you're doing then matters, because it means you need to reach a certain amount of people for there to be any difference. So how many people have you reached so far, and what is the plan, especially because we're entering another election cycle?
Yeah, so we're about to launch the 9th cohort. We're actually expanding massively. We plan a lot of media for this, since the classes are free, and we use Telegram as the foundation. So it means we can take up to 50,000. Even more than that.
Right.
And we're looking at that. But I think the college is more interested in graduating associates, which is what we call our graduates, that actually can infiltrate and work within systems. So we have people like I think the chief of staff to the Nigerian Medical Students Association, who she's an associate. We have the head of the Bar Association in Asaba, who is the youngest that has ever held that position, who is also a former associate. And we also teach a little bit of how to break through the system in Nigeria politically. And we've graduated people. We have people who have served as local government chairmen across states. So, and then people who are working within parties, who are within campaigns. And we feel that these little changes, we don't think that educating everybody in Nigeria we will be able to do that. That would be kind of crazy. But we think that if we're able to drive a few more, I'd say the Electoral College, like when most CSOs were talking about PVC registration, the Electoral College was asking people to go into primaries. And here's the reason, into parties, and here's the reason why.
Okay, you were encouraging people to become card-carrying members of political parties.
And here's the reason why.
Right.
So in Nigeria, or the way democracy is structured, if you're not part of the primaries and what emerges from the primaries, you're actually just going to be picking it from a selection made for you.
Yes.
So the best
it's always
way
been our problem.
yes,
By the
so
time
the
we get to elections, it's too late to actually influence
so
the
you
quality.
just wake up and see Mr. X, Y, Z, and R, and you be like, no, I don't want these guys. But you didn't participate in the political party, and then and participate in the primaries that these guys emerged from. And we looked at it and said, no. So we're more interested in people going within those parameters more than any other president.
Now there's a similar initiative called the School for Politics and Government. Yes, and do you guys collaborate? Is it a similar type of thing that you guys are doing?
Okay,
or is it different?
So I teach at the SPGG.
Okay.
And the SPGG is about 1.5 years younger than us. It's more targeted at people that want to have a position of aspiring for office.
Right. People who want to run for office.
We do that, but we try to expand it a bit, and we try to not keep it, how would I put it?
Exclusive to
just people, and just the average person. So we've armed you enough that if you want to run for office, you can run for office. But with just enough for you to understand as a citizen. And it shocks people the kind of simple things they get to learn. Like you'd find out someone who probably has a PhD and didn't know that local government chairmen don't have immunity, or that the average local government in Nigeria gets at least 130 million from FAC allocations per month.
Yeah.
Most people don't. This is common data, but people don't know where to look for it. So if we feel that if we push these arguments in this direction, people will be able to ask the right questions at the right times. We know most of the time we just sit down blaming Mr. President. I don't
or the center. Rather.
I don't ever want to be president of Nigeria. Trust me. So you get a lot of things, and the truth is, what's going on from governors down to the local government
is as
amazing.
important as what's happening at the center. Is that what you're saying?
It's far more important. is more important
Than
than
what is
what's
happening
going
at
to
the
the center.
center.
Yes, because I'll give you an example. So I was at Lagos Talks, and it was a community thing, and it was held in conjunction with a radio station in Lagos, and they brought the local government chairman of Etiosa, I think one, and then you see the House of Assembly member Ishao, I think, and we're on a conversation. And we're talking, and he was complaining about funds coming from the center, and everybody agreed with it. And I said no, and I proved I pulled it up on my phone, and then we put it on the screen, and we proved that Etiosa receives 403 million per month from the federal. So what are you talking about?
403 million naira
per month from the center.
So if there's a problem, it means it's the state government not remitting that money rather than the federal government.
The good part is the president, I remember, with Executive Order 10 of 2020, instructed that this money is be paid directly to local government. That has taken effect. Though governors are challenging it, they've lost at High Court and they've carried it to Supreme Court, and I think they will lose there.
Okay. So based basically on the work you're doing, what you're saying to me is that you think local government functionality and autonomy is central to development.
Yes, if we're able to, we believe that the local government is the first handshake of democracy to the people. If we're able to get the local government right, it means that the governors will be forced to function properly. If the governors are forced to function properly, the president will have to be on his toes. Simple.
Now, you work also with political parties.
Yes.
I've read somewhere that you are concerned about the way media covers elections, particularly when it comes to the disparity of coverage, mainstream versus regular parties. Talk to me a little bit about the work you're doing and whether that is related to this issue of media or if that's a separate thing entirely.
Okay, so we believe that according to the Electoral Act already, if one candidate of a political party is given 1 hour on a radio show, it means all the other candidates of that political party running for that same office must be given that 1 hour.
As radio people, we can tell you part of the problem is sometimes finding them.
I agree.
I promise you, not all of them are willing to talk. There's a particular party in this Lagos that will be chasing for a little while.
Most of them will not want to come to radio. Number one, they're not eloquent enough to make a statement. And then two, but I think where the Electoral College holds the media more on is the inability to... Okay, so you watch the average shows and then you have some reporters on media calling a former aspirant a candidate, mixing up the candidate word and aspirant, and then going up to the levels that you now start to say one Hausa man running for office in Lagos. That's not necessary. A Nigerian is running for office, a Nigerian is running for office. We don't need the colorations or explanations to give us that. And I think that's where the Electoral College tries to intervene with the media on that matter. I think we're even trying to put together in conjunction with CJID something to train people in Lagos, because we find it, I don't want to sound, we find it a little prevalent in Lagos than in Abuja.
So you work with regular people, you work with media on sort of ensuring that they do what you might call ethical and balanced reporting. Of candidates. What do you do with the political parties?
Okay, so for political parties, we kind of work within the system and help ensure their primaries go properly first. They allow us into their primaries. Not like we have a full say, but they allow us into their primaries. And then they give us the opportunity to sometimes work with candidates or aspirants. And then the Electoral College sometimes sends its associates on what we call like IT. You send them, attach them to a candidate or to a party, work within the system, just to get a feel of how being in a party is. Then if they want to join, most of them take their decisions themselves. So we help. But
you've tried to remain non-partisan. So you do this literally with all parties, as long as they are amenable to it.
As long as they offer a hand of friendship, we're ready to work with them. And the Electoral College, I have remained, as it said, I have remained fully non-partisan. So we've worked with the APC, we've worked with the PDP, we've worked with the SDP, we've worked with Labour temporarily, we've worked with the ADC. I believe the Electoral College even has a plaque of commendation from the ADC. So we've worked with a lot, and we cannot, of course, remain partisan. Though we have people in political parties within the Electoral College board, and I'll tell you why. So when we are going to pull a debate, it helps us with access. Because most of the time,
and the board, when you say you have people from police, but again, it's across both,
it's across all
as many
parties.
parties
No,
as
yes,
possible. So it's not like just heavily in favor of a PDP or APC or anything
Trust
like that.
me, if you discuss politics if we discuss who will win these elections in a board meeting, it probably will end up with glasses flying and stuff. No.
Okay, so I mean, you contested for office. You were 39. I kind of find it hard to believe. I'm sorry, I'm going to sound a bit patronizing, but you don't even look 39 even now. You're a bit like me. People say
I wanted to say. Yeah. I just wanted to say you're a perfect example.
But what insight did you get when you ran for FCT senator, and you ran not on the COA party ticket but on another party? Which party was that?
Alliance for New Nigeria.
So you've done what Nigerians have done, right? You've sort of cross-carpeted and jumped from party to party.
And it's easy to say, but I know I moved based on principle.
Right.
The COA party broke a parameter. It took a decision without the National Executive Council, which I was a member of, and accepted to join COP. And I remember I put it publicly that decision should be rescinded or it should be taken formally at the National Executive Council. When it wasn't taken, I relinquished my membership of the COA party. And Alliance for New Nigeria already refused to bring out a candidate saying I was good enough to be a candidate, so they were going to support me. So it wasn't like I just kind of like shifted to someone who had
but then you lost.
I don't think I lost an election. Abuja lost a
what
senator.
What happened? Okay.
No, because the people don't know the difference between what exactly they should demand from a senator. And the truth is, we put up
how did you campaign? And tell me the insights that you got, which sort of formed you being able to sort of make this emphatic, declaration that Abuja people lost a senator.
So I'll give you an example. One of the best stories I think I enjoy was going to somewhere by Idu train station, and it was a small village. They've not had light for 3 or 4 years, and I went there, and I remember I met the village head, and he said they will vote for me if I gave them light. And I said, as a senator, my job, I wouldn't be able to do that, but I will be able to provide the kind of laws that would allow for renewable energy or solar energy to be used almost immediately, and to enable mini grids within.
So you were very honest about your limitations in that office.
Yeah, and my campaign team nearly shot me because the guy walked me out of his palace, and I didn't hear from him again for like 2 months. 2 months later, this was still before elections. 2 months later, he calls me directly. I had his number, but I'd forgotten I had it, and then he called me. And he was like, Senator, please come. My son is marrying. I want you to come for the event. And I sat down with him. And then apparently his son schooled abroad. And his son told him, of all the people that have come here, that was the guy that told you the truth.
Isn't it true, though, that there's a way in which National Assembly members can lobby and influence the bringing of development to their constituencies, even abroad? That is a viable role of a senator or a member of the House of Reps.
Yes, it is, but it's not the first foot forward.
No, it isn't.
It's not the first foot forward.
No, it isn't. But you're allowed to do the second and the third foot, surely, and even the fourth and fifth.
I just felt I didn't want to lie.
Right.
And
but would it have been a lie if you'd said, I won't promise to do it, but I can try and influence it?
I would have given him hope. I just didn't want to give... I didn't want to give false hope. The tag of my campaign at the time, KL 2019, was just like you. And I said I wasn't going to walk with security, and I didn't. And at Senate level, once you win the primaries of Senate, you're allowed 2 mobile policemen. And I didn't take that. I walked around the people of Abuja, and I walked simply. And I said I wasn't going to do anything.
So was the experience so traumatic that you decided, I'm no longer going to be an active politician, I'm going to enable other people to vote better, to contest better?
Do you want me to tell you the truth
be
or
honest,
a lie?
Yeah, so was it a trauma, or was it like a strategic decision that, look, I could actually be more useful doing what I'm doing now through the Electoral College? I'm trying to understand what the impact of that election did to your perception.
I think
especially in the way you sort of decided to get involved personally?
I think it did a lot of things.
Okay.
The first thing is it traumatized me. Because you can imagine, my son was born October 2016. I declared to run for office December 2016. Young marriage, just like a year, and I jumped into politics. There's parts people will not tell you.
Very hopeful.
Yes, I nearly lost my marriage. I spent most of the money at the end in business. But I'll tell you what I gained. I'll tell you what I gained.
What did you gain?
The experience in running for office. I've helped campaigns across Nigeria. I'm still helping campaigns across Nigeria. I advise multiple campaigns, and this spans from people who are governors to people in National Assembly. I've learned to bridge campaigns. I learned to be able to pick how to phase into a system. So I'll give you, looking at Abuja, multicultural point, I'll tell you that if you put posters in Igbo at a particular, that's the posters coming out in Igbo in a particular part of Abuja, then you put the same posters but now in Hausa in a particular part of Abuja, you'll be able to break into some parameters. And then I learned to study the non-indigenous votes, because that's what I tried to run on in Abuja. Looking at that, and then if you replicate that in another state, I'll give an example. I was called in as regards Oyo State, and while I was running for office, and I looked at, my friend was like, Kunle is good with these things, just look at this thing. And I remember the governor had run twice, I think, and then he was going, that's the present governor, he was running the third time, and I realized he was always second. And I looked at the INEC statistics, and I was like, if you approached non-indigenous votes, you might be able to tilt the scale. You've always been second, which means it's just a small gap.
Okay.
And then he approached it that way. Well, it worked.
You've entered an interesting area, and I'm going to pursue it, particularly in relation to Lagos, because I think Lagos represents an interesting dimension to the next elections in 2023 because of the huge Igbo votes here. But before we go into that, you said you sort of work, across parties for different candidates. How do you determine who you're going to work for? Is it purely who can pay? Or do you look at the candidates, or do you look at the parties? What are the parameters for deciding I will do A but I will not do B? Because I imagine it's not everybody
I don't work for what I don't believe in.
Okay.
So the first thing you have to do as a person is prove to me you're worth the position. I've turned down people that would think maybe I would accept advising them because they were female. And maybe they're running in Abuja and they thought I would. But when you don't even understand what a councillor does, why should I be sitting down to advise you?
Right.
So first things I have to believe, and I don't think in all situations I'm paid. I even take more unpaid consultancies than I take. I hope my wife is not listening. So I take more unpaid. I take more unpaid consultancies than I do take paid. And the reasons are I've been very interested in governance. I love this country. I sign everything for the love of country. Anybody that knows me knows I sign that. Everything. I sign everything with that.
Okay, so this new election circle that we've entered, officially campaigning will kick off in September. We seem to have the usual suspects, the ruling APC, the now, opposition PDP, but there's a Labour Party that is generating a lot of interest because of Mr. Peter Obi, their presidential candidate. And what have you been able to sort of glean based on your experience and knowledge of regarding the way 2023 is going to pan out? I've heard people say they think it will go into a second round for the first time in the history of Nigeria. We're not likely to get a first round winner. People are anticipating that young people who've sort of gone out and registered en masse are going to make a difference. Social media will be a major factor. What can you tell me about your assessment of the state of play, particularly as it pertains to these three leading parties? Or are we even dismissing other people that are important but who are not making a part of the mainstream conversation, and so we're missing out on sort of the influence they're going to have on on the outcome of the elections?
So, of all the presidential candidates, there are four I will not dismiss.
Mm-hmm.
That's Kwankwaso of NNPP,
Mm-hmm.
Peter Obi of Labour Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar of the PDP, and Alhaji Bola Tinubu of APC. I wouldn't dismiss them, but I will clearly state that 2023 will be altered by something. And this is why I think it can be altered by something. 2023 is going to be the first time in an election that we're going to have more people that have never participated in an election participating in an election, and that percentage is higher than those that have participated. So it's going to
if they all come out to vote.
No, well, we're looking at let's just say if they all come out to vote.
Okay.
But even if they don't,
I say this to you because we saw an uptake as well of sort of voter registration, and then we had elections in places like Ekiti, and for me the numbers still remained quite disappointing because there were people who had voter cards that did not come out to vote. So there is an expectation that once somebody has registered or picked up a voter card, they will come out to vote. But it never quite pans out on voting day.
But there's something we need to understand about Nigeria. So Nigeria, when it comes to voting for president, Nigerians are out. You have a problem. You lose about 14% when you get to governor. Lose another 14% on the same ballot paper with the president as regards Senate and House of Rep. Then
you think this is all part of not understanding the significance
yes, of course.
of those
then LG election drops to less than 10%.
10%, yeah.
Which is sad.
Yes.
And so, but so you can guarantee, so far as president, Nigerians are in the game. Anything else, I cannot vouch for them. So looking at 2023, I feel something will go wrong. Something would alter the system. Do I think the Labour Party has a chance? Yes. Do I think they have a chance more than anybody else? No. Because when the real politics will start, some games are going to be altered a bit. Let's remember that whether we like it or not, people are going to switch sides. And that is going to happen mostly to the Labour Party than it will happen to any other party. It's whether they can handle the repercussion of that.
Are you concerned, like a lot of other people, including myself, about the fact that perhaps more than any other election, this is looking like one in which religion is going to play a major part? I mean, we've seen pastors, we've seen malams in mosques, doing things that are sort of unprecedented on the sort of scale we've seen them. So it's not like we've not had pastors endorse candidates before or malams endorse candidates, but it now seems to be a game in town where the numbers are much bigger than we've ever seen. And there's the talk of the Muslim ticket. There's the talk of Lalong do not accept, to run, Northern Christians. There's a whole bunch of things that are so open and blatant and amplified in a way that we've never seen before. Is that a concern?
I don't think it's a concern. For me, it's the first time we've actually put our reality outside.
Right.
So
we're not pretending anymore.
Okay, so you know what? Before it was a little shaded. Orise Jaffa will come and does good luck codedly. And now we've decided to open the dish. We're looking at Nigeria for what it actually is.
Right.
Do I see a problem?
The underbelly is now fully exposed.
So
right.
Do I see a problem with the Muslim ticket? I don't think so.
I wasn't talking about the problem with the Muslim ticket. I'm talking about the fact that we're going to have an election where perhaps religion is going to be a factor in the way people vote.
Religion has always played a factor in the way we vote in Nigeria. Like I said earlier, it's just that this time the cover of the dish is off. The mask is off. So the game is open. But it's always played a factor. I can tell you people that might like other people but will not vote for them based on their ethnicity. I know people that will not vote for Peter Obi. I know people that will never vote for Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. I know people that will never vote for Bola Tinubu. And their reasons are not even on governance principles. It's because they are who they are. In short, from their names, they don't even want to hear anything after that. And that's how it has remained. So I just think we finally are showing who exactly we are.
But how much progress can we make as a people if this continues to be the sort of the criteria upon which we sort of determine the people who govern us rather than, pure competence?
I think Nigerians haven't suffered enough. And I always say this. I say this clearly because
how can you say that in a country that is going through what we're going through? Unemployment rate, tanking economy, high level of insecurity, all sorts of things.
Let me say this. If you were in the US right now and you were broke, you have nobody to call.
Yes.
We still have our godfathers who I call the real godfathers in Nigeria, who are the Nigerians in diaspora. We still can call them and reach out and say, bros, I'm broke, £100. That's a lot of money now. It goes to get things. So we're not yet there. I feel when Nigerians actually get to the real pain, we will sit down and knock out ethnicity and religion.
So I kind of disagree with you, because I think the kind of Nigerians you're talking about are people like you and I, people in the middle classes, people who have people to reach out to.
Does Nigeria still have a middle class?
Because there are people who can't eat 3 square meals, and I can't believe you're saying they haven't gotten to where they've gotten to. So I think there's a way in which we tend to sort of measure what's going on in the country based on our own reality, which isn't always at par with them for the majority of Nigerians.
Kadaria, do you know why
Look, our poverty level, according to the World Poverty Clock, right? In another something, we're looking at 90 million Nigerians living below the poverty line.
Kadaria, could I say
That's
something?
a huge number.
Kadaria, could I say something? So I see elections in Jos, Zamfara, Jigawa, Cross River, Akwa Ibom, Lagos, Oyo, and I've seen these people, these same people that you're talking about, decide not to make the right choices.
Are they deciding?
Yes.
Or are they choosing to live there and then and actually deal with what their immediate need is?
You could say what their
so
immediate
they're forced.
is.
Their hands are forced. If you don't have a meal for that day, and a politician is offering you a meal for that day, and you have children at home, it's very hard for you to think 4 years from now. You want to give children food today.
Why have you missed the fact that the reason your children are hungry is that simple?
Because you that cannot give them food in their belly that day. And when you are a father and you have a hungry child, your immediate concern is how to feed them.
Of course, that's natural. That's natural. But I keep saying, I even think for me, if you're going to ask me who is the problem in Nigeria, I won't go to the grassroots. I'll tell you it's the middle class. The ones,
you and I.
Yes, the ones that say, I'll give you an example. No offense to Senator Dino Melai, but the ones that will say, I said no offense. Well, so, no offense to Senator Dino Melai.
Are you from Kogi like him?
My mom is from Kogi.
Okay.
My mom is from Kogi. So back to what I was saying. So Senator Dino Melai, lot of cars, affluent, will complain about him on social media. Everybody writes about this. But now, fast forward to us attending maybe a birthday party, and he's there, and I take a selfie with him, and I post it on the same social media. The same people that complained about him and his corrupt ways would say, Kunle, you have moved up in life. And let me ask you,
see that association as a positive.
And let me ask you a question. You don't see the big politicians, no names called, carrying cash to the grassroots. Who is the conduit? The middle class. Channel. Will remain the channel. Who says the grassroots needs money? The middle class.
The middle class.
Because
they also...
We are the ones that package the gifts now.
Because I have a culture of rent seeking where we make our own money from sort of being a conduit. So
till the middle class in Nigeria decides to wake up, we're going to remain here.
You referenced indigenship voting and sort of lack of it, and your understanding of the way sort of politics of non-indigens works. And I had said to you, I want to come back and talk about a place that we think this might be a factor in the 2023 elections, and that's Lagos. Perhaps more than any other Nigerian city, save maybe Abuja. It's probably the most cosmopolitan place that we have, meaning that there are people from all over the country congregating here. But specifically, I think there's like a lot of Southeasterners, that many born and bred here generationally, that live here, and their votes can actually be quite significant. And we've seen a drive among them to sort of go out and vote. Do you believe there will be a factor in the 2023 elections, both for the governorship election but also for the presidential?
Okay, so Lagos,
Because you're the expert on this now.
6.9, I wish. Yeah. You know you're smarter than me. 6.9 million voters in Lagos. Lagos has never had up to 1.5 million voters participating in an election. The last we saw in LG election was below even 600,000.
Yes.
So if Lagos, and right now they have 7.5 million about registered cards, collected PVCs. So if Lagos stands up to the game, Lagos can bring in anyone. Anybody could win Lagos. The non-indigenous votes, of course, will matter. That's if Lagos stands up for Lagos.
Right.
But if they do the usual, and we're in Lagos now, so we can't describe Lagos people. If you do the usual Lagos thing, it's elections, man. I think I'll just travel out. I'll go to Britain and cool off. Or I'll go to... and this is the first time I've seen people cooling off. Okay, so I've lived in Abuja for 41 years and I'm here now for about 6 months. This is the only time I've seen people say I'm going to cool off in Benin Republic. I was like, you went for a weekend to Benin Republic? He said, yes. I said, what? Do you know the hassle to go there and come back? I said, yes, but I just wanted to relax. I don't call that relaxing. So they could do that. Or they could decide to... One of the things I think we normally find ourselves doing in Nigeria is argue on social media and the WhatsApp groups, and actually don't go. I know people that wanted to go and vote, but were arguing so much on WhatsApp on who's winning and checking the numbers that they couldn't go to vote in the end. And if that happens and we drop back to the 1.5 million, then nothing will change in Lagos.
Interesting that you said that. Okay, so, outside the Electoral College, you also work with something called the social network. How is that different from the Electoral College, and what does it do?
Okay, so what you're talking about is Word Chat.
Oh,
so
it's
Word
called
Chat,
Word Chat, right?
yes, Word Chat. So a few people came together and decided to come up with something that is socially interactive, but from using the word as a proxima, which is the smallest unit of political structure, as a basis of conversation. So, of course, we've seen the end that it can be used for business, which means if you're within the same word, it has you can interact with people within your
So tell
word.
me first, I'm a little bit confused. Is it a platform, a technology platform that you set up? What is it?
It's a social media application, like you have Facebook, Twitter, and that's how it is. Word Chat is its own. So you can interact, but the first interactions, if you join Word Chat today, you would impute your polling units, your local government, where everything. Once you do that, it will put you on a particular place. What you can see immediately is your ward people, and then you can see your local government and then your state. Most of the friends you'll be seeing, it's already arranged that way, algorithmically. So you see people within your ward immediately first, then later state, local government, and then the country in general. So it was just to help promote interactions within people from a ward level. And now instead of having the usual newspaper conversations where I probably vote in Ali Mosho and then next person arguing with me on politics, voting Etiosa. It's not. But if we're in the same polling unit and we're having this kind of conversations, it means we have the same counselor. We have the same counselor. We have the same problem. So we try to bring that virtually to people.
What sort of
Nigeria.
uptake have you seen? Are people interested?
Yeah, we've celebrated. Word Chat has celebrated more than 20,000 people, and we're still in the first 4 months.
Okay.
Which is.
Do you think you will see an uptake as we get closer to elections?
I think so. Because part of the plan is to involve political parties, bring their conversations there so that they can interact with, and this is also from a non-partisan position, so that they can interact with
the electorate.
And if we do that, we might have a swing. We're looking at a projected swing of at least 250,000 before elections.
Okay, so we've been talking about your lived experience of sort of working in the political space, in the election space, but we're in a country that is facing a few difficulties. In fact, the World Bank, in a statement just last week, described Nigeria as facing an existential threat, and they were specifically speaking about how badly our economy is doing. We're not a very productive people. The little things we produce, are no longer generating enough income to pay for what we consume. So we are, spending most of what we sort of earn on paying debt, servicing, buying petroleum products, which we shouldn't, etc., etc. We're in a bit of a problem, and then there's an insecurity issue. We've seen, people within the APC would argue, for example, that we don't have suicide bombers anymore, local governments are not under Boko Haram. But then you point out to them that the theater of conflict has expanded, the Northwest is now under siege, the Southeast is under siege, and so one could argue that we've seen the spread of insecurity. Depending on which side of politics they sit, they may agree or disagree. But looking at all of that, there are people who say it is difficult to see it is difficult to see us holding what might be considered free and fair elections under these circumstances. What do you think?
Well, I think after 2015, I'll beg to differ.
Okay.
2015 taught us that even at the height of Boko Haram, there could be elections in Maiduguri. Politicians, more than anything, protect their continuity. And I think that's what will come to play in the
But isn't it, it's not so much elections taking place. I was talking about free, fair, and maybe the third word should be credible. Because, credibility is an important factor in politics. Legitimacy, that's the word people use. So if you win an election that people generally believe is not free and fair, you lose legitimacy. And that can have repercussions for your ability to govern. Right? So I'm talking about that, the credibility of the polls.
Now, looking at the credibility of the polls, I think, have our elections really been credible? If we were to take an X-ray into Nigerian elections, have they ever been credible? We can just say some had a little less of the usual than others. But when you're talking of credible, the word credible, number one, for an election to be free, it means everybody that has the right to have a franchise should be able to vote.
And not to be intimidated.
Yes. So we've seen. Let's even go back to INEC. So INEC has done a fine job, but they could do a better job.
This electoral act that we have, the new one, what are your thoughts on it, and the fact that people are excited and say it's making a difference, particularly in the way election votes are sort of collated at sort of polling units and announced?
Yes, I think, for someone who's run for office in 2019, I know what collation offices did to me. So, so I think that people might look at it as a small thing. It's not a small thing. Trust me, it's a very big thing. Right. Because the magic happens between the polling unit and the collation center. That's where things happen. That's where now Nigeria happens to the elect. That is brilliant, and I think you must commend the National Assembly, whether they did it, whether they were sleeping or not, but they did it, and the president for also assenting to it. The Electoral Act also has allowed for the new way in which there are timelines, especially post primaries. I would say earlier, you just had 3 months to campaign.
Right.
Now you have about 6, not up to 6, but about 5.5, which is a lot more time. And then there are more stringent laws to primaries. And I think what makes it most interesting is one person not being able to go after another office. So hence the case of Akpabio and who in the East, who cannot represent their constituencies. And this is because they had gone for a presidential ambition. So the law is fine when, let's say, you went for Senate in PDP, didn't get it, then you go in Labour Party and you get it. That's the same position. But not when you go for president, then you in that party, then we want to go for Senate as a keeping a placeholder and replacing.
I mean, that backfired majorly for Senate president. Yes, didn't it?
It's backfired for a lot of people. So it's backfired for a lot of people. Okay. And I think it's just bringing a little sanity to the system, making sure this is what you want to do. And then now the thought process into picking a deputy. Deputies could be picked at any time before and, just slotted in and changed and done whatever they want. And now you've seen quite a format to it.
So you sound, based on just listening to you, you've not become cynical about Nigeria. It sounds to me like you're still very much optimistic about this country. and our ability to sort of keep going until we get it right. Would that be correct?
I was born here. I love one country. I belong to one country. I can only be from one country. I always tell people, when they come up with their Jackpot stories, I always tell them about my cousin. So my uncle during SAP decided to escape. Then
He
it was
did
called
Andrew.
check out.
Yes, Andrew was checking
out.
out.
That's
Yes.
what they call it then. So he was checking out. So now you believe I'm old a little bit. so he was checking out, and then he checked out, and then my uncle is late now, so my cousin came to bury him. And if you know Kaba in Kogi State, it's a place where banks close at 3 p.m. because of how volatile it can be. So he went to use the ATM, and when he went to use the ATM, he was shot 3 times. He survived it, but it leaves a mark that no matter where you go, you're always Nigerian.
Yeah.
And you're always going to be connected here, and something will happen, and Nigeria can happen to you. So, yes, I'm very optimistic about this country. There are a few of us that are ready to fight for this country.
But that story should mean that you are not optimistic. I mean, if someone who left this country could come back and then on a visit get shot, doesn't it say a lot about who we are and the kind of community and society we built?
Sometimes you can look at the glass as half full or half empty.
Right.
I'm choosing to see it half full. So it means we need to work here to ensure we have a country to come back to, instead of reading it as somewhere I'm escaping from and don't want to go to.
I know we sort of talked about it, but I just want you to speak a little bit more to it. Do our smaller political parties genuinely represent an alternative to the 2 mainstream parties?
No.
Why not?
Because generally there's no difference between any politician.
All Nigerian politicians are the same.
Quest for power makes them do stupid things.
That is a scary thought, because it means like Nigerians are going to end up with the same outcomes if it's the same type of people.
Yes, it's just that toward gravity is the difference. So the way I see it, from what I've studied, no offense, but Nigeria is more like a buffet of corruption. Everybody's just waiting for his turn. So when it's not your turn at the buffet, of course you'll be saying, yeah, they're eating, they're taking all the food, they are relaxing. But the moment you're put into the room, Nigeria is fine, we're moving forward, we're making progress. Meanwhile, you're not making any progress, you're doing the exact same thing the other guy did.
But you have to admit that even if that has been the case, the end result of where we are is that the erosion, every election cycle, we are sort of further eroding who we are, which is why you see the problems becoming compounded and bigger, because you are building on layers of that corruption, like you said. It doesn't make for a hopeful view for the future of the country if all we're going to keep doing is building on essentially this rottenness that you've described.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we're going forward. There's a false culture in politics which we've all been taught to think in a particular way. And there's this thing when I always laugh and hear people when they say, take the power from the old, give it to the young. I'll tell you for free, I'm more scared of my own generation in power than I'm scared of the older ones. And this is no offense, I'm not bought. We have gangster dreams, trust me. At our generation, trust me. The older guys don't know how to spend money. I know guys that will sell something.
But this is a serious matter we're talking about.
It's serious.
It's a bit scary, and you're laughing about it. And I'm concerned that you're laughing about it.
Do you know why I'm laughing about it?
Why are you laughing about it?
Because I have chosen not to take it personal. I've done enough work to correct that.
Right.
And I put in a lot. I believe I wrote something when I was...
So it's better for you to focus on
the work.
Doing what you can.
Yes, but than to start... If not, I'll probably die of cardiac arrest before I'm 45. So I'm not going to dwell on it. So yes, I just want to concentrate on the work I'm doing, try to effect the changes I can make.
And those are the changes that you think will make a fundamental difference. Educating people, getting them to pay attention to local and state government, etc., etc.
Yes.
That's in a nutshell for you. Those are the things that would in the end change things.
Yes, it felt good. Like I spoke about that event I was at Lagos, and it felt good when the State House of Assembly was talking about how he picks people's calls. And somebody who was my student in the Electoral College stood up and said, "How many bills have you proposed?" Last I checked, it was 0. And he was asking him that, and the guy was virtually like, all of a sudden the ACs were off. He was sweating all of a sudden.
And so finally, we've talked about the work that you're doing and how you think that may make a difference. But if I were to ask you to sort of, in a nutshell, tell me from your experience and the insight you've sort of gained from working with politicians, political parties, regular Nigerians, what is missing in this country? What is it that we don't have?
Love for country. Everybody
Patriotism.
Everybody looks at themselves unilaterally as Basa, Hausa, Fulani, Efik, before they see themselves as Nigerian, Yoruba, before they see themselves as Nigerian. So I realized that most of Nigeria's fights, and then, also working within civic education, going to grassroots, I also found out that Nigeria's fight is actually over resources. That's the only time. A Nigerian loves a good time. The average Nigerian, from Bikis in northern Nigeria to Wambes in southern Nigeria, we love a good time. Naturally, a Nigerian loves a good time. So when we get to resources, and that's why I believe every tribe in Nigeria is marginalized. Not one, not two. Every tribe in Nigeria is marginalized. If we're able to conquer that and then unify our thought processes, we could become the greatest country in the world.
And how feasible is that? What are the steps to sort of unifying the country, getting us to sort of pull behind?
We're talking with a friend.
A single Nigeria.
We're talking with a friend the other day, and I said something which sounded stupid, but when I go home and thought of it, I still don't think it's stupid. So I was like, why do we speak English the way we do? All of us speak Pidgin. Let's just turn Nigeria's lingua franca to Pidgin. We already write TOEFL anyway, so we can as well just continue, do you understand, and rule it our own way. And something as little as that we have
unified
language will bring, so the president will make his speech in Pidgin. We already speak it, and it's something we can sell to the world. Come on, people are trying to speak Pidgin because of our musicians. We're already selling it to the world, so why don't we take advantage of it? And these are things that we could just begin to put in place so that Nigeria could finally sit down as
But isn't that why people believe the center matters? Because these are the sort of policies that can only be sort of formed and driven by a visionary leader at the center.
I don't think visionary. What I think about Nigeria is that we've never had a Nigerian president.
Aha. And on that note, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Who believes we need a Nigerian president, and that Nigeria has never had a Nigerian president? Thank you, Kunle Lawal, for joining me on 11:45. And that's it for this edition of 11:45. Join me again next month when I'll be in conversation with another accomplished Nigerian.